Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes podcast. My name is Audrey and this is a nitty yarny podcast from the southwest of France. Hi, thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you are all doing well. I am, though I didn't get much sleep last night, but that's okay. I have a slightly different setup today, although you might not really be able to tell because the wall happens to be the same color. But the thing is, my father has been working overnight and he is currently trying to sleep. So even though he is a pretty deep sleeper and I don't think I could wake him up, I have chosen to just put myself a little bit further away from him, hoping that it won't disturb him too much. I considered going outside because it's a beautiful, hot, sunny day today, finally. But there was a really enthusiastic bird that kept chirping in the garden, so I think it would have been hilarious, but not really practical. So that's why I am like this. I actually quite like it. The light is really good. The light is brilliant. The only thing is, my phone is currently standing on an arrangement of things on the bed in which I'm also sitting on. So you see, if I move just a little bit, the phone is moving as well. I'll have to see if that is really a big issue. Do tell me in the comments if you getting sick motion or anything, because the light is brilliant and I quite like that bed thingy. But yeah, I see that whenever I'm moving, the phone is trembling a little bit and that might be a problem, so I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I have the usual knitting bits, some sewing, because I have sewn, yes, so I will be sharing that as well. And yeah, you can find timestamps to all the different sections in the description down below, so if you want to skip anything, like an incoming chatter on design creativity, that's coming at the end of the knitting section, feel free to jump ahead. There will also be links to everything that I talk about, as well as my social media and patterns for sale on Ravelry, the Ravelry group, etc. Yeah, let's get on with it. So, knitting wise, I have a finished object, and as you can see, it is my Joran top that I have finished and that took forever to dry, but it is done and I am now wearing it. And yes, I am going to get up so you can see it, see how it fits, and yeah, desperately trying to not make the phone shake too much. So here it is. So the Joran top is a pattern from Raglan, which is published in Breeze, the new making story book, and it is a linen tank top, which these lovely twisted stitch panels at the back. So it has a split hem, the back is slightly longer. Do you like my yoga pants? Yeah, it's yeah, comfy. The truth behind podcasting. Tell me, if you're podcasting and people don't see your bottom half, do you really bother wearing proper attire? But anyway, I am going to change. You can see how it fits, so I can show you actually in details. There. So as you could see, it was, well, it's not a fitted garment, but I don't know why I expected it to be looser than it is, but it's fine. It's really comfortable and flowy, and with wear, linen will just get more and more drapey and soft and beautiful. But here's how it looks closed up. So it is a seamed tank top, as you saw while I was making it, and yeah, So I'm trusting everything. I never really know how to process with blocking and seaming things when you're making a garment. I know that a lot of people, well, you should block before seaming because that way you have the true the true size and type of fabric, and it's also easier to seam when things are blocked. But I always need to block after seaming as well because yeah, the seaming is always tight, it looks a bit wonky, so I would have, if, yeah, I always feel like if I wanted to do things right, I would need to wash and block because I wet block, so I soak the thing and let it dry and then seam it and then soak it again and let it dry. And with something like linen, which is quite, it is a funny material because it's quite heavy, and you might be surprised if you the first time you actually make a linen tank top, because it's quite hefty. This is about let's see, I had about 30 grams left, I believe, out of 300. So yeah, it's a bit less than 300 grams, and it feels heftier than wool because it's a denser, tighter fiber and fabric as well. As I was talking last time, with the gauge needing to be quite dense, and yeah, so it's quite heavy. Oh my god, I need to stop moving. It's quite heavy, but it remains light to wear. But the thing is, it being so dense, it takes ages to dry. Like, this took 3 days to dry, and although it wasn't necessarily super hot, it wasn't really cold and humid either. It was, yeah. So that's why I didn't want to web block the thing twice. So I seamed everything. I also picked up for the neckline. You can see the neckline and the armholes, and then I web blocked everything and put it into shape, and everything smoothed out and got a really nice loose tank top shape. So yeah, I really like it. I'm really happy with it. My neckline is also a bit higher than on the pattern. I don't know why that is. Probably because I never really know how to measure things. You know, whenever I measure a piece of knitting, I can never get the same measurements twice, because sometimes obviously I stretch it more or I stretch it less. So, but yeah, the neckline is a bit tighter, although it's fitting really well. Yeah, like I said last time, I really like the obvious thick decreases of the shaping, and I really like how it works with the little bit of stockinette that you pick up and knit for the neckline. Split hem with the back longer, that's how it goes. Yes, two things actually. When you start shaping the neckline, so you're working back and forth all together, and then you get here, and the pattern says to attach a new ball of yarn and bind off, and then continue here with that second set of yarn. I don't understand why. To me it would just make another end to weave in here, while what I did is that I was with my balls of yarn, because you're holding the linen double, and I just bound off and kept going, and then I added another ball of yarn to come back here. But you know, I don't know if that why that was and if there's actually a reason to start with a separate ball of yarn instead of just continuing with the one you get, because you're not working them simultaneously anyway. So that's what I did. I think it worked. And second thing, for seaming the sides, so the pattern says to seam starting, I don't know, it says about 13 centimeters on my size, I think, from here and up to the armhole. Well, I thought it would be much easier to start seaming from the armhole and to just keep going and stop when you reach the texture panel of the front, and then you just have the extra longer bit at the back that just, it stops naturally where, you know, where the two fabrics cannot be seamed anymore together. That makes sense. So yeah, just little things that I did instinctively, and yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. You know, I love the feel of linen. This is my second linen top and I am super happy with it and I can't wait to make more. But yeah, this is Lino Muka in the coral colorway and it is really, really nice and beautiful. So like I said, I had 30 grams left, so I used about 1,300 meters, hold double, and the gauge is actually, so it's 26 stitches per 10 centimeters, and it's actually, now that it's all blocked, well, you can see my hands through it now, but it's actually quite dense. So I'm considering trying to go a bit looser for my next linen top, maybe try a 24 stitches per 10 centimeters, holding the linen double, fingering weight linen double. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, but I'm really happy with it and it's nice and flowy and yeah, it's really nice and I think it's a cool, easy knit to get started with linen. And sure, you have a lot of stockinette to do, so you know you gotta accept this, and it's flat, although you could probably just, you know, knit the two panels, pick up for the back, knit whatever extra length you need for the back, and then pick up from the front panel and knit in the round. I think that would be perfectly doable. I actually hesitated doing that, but you know, since I am an ambassador for Breeze, I thought I'd rather make the pattern as it is written, and I don't mind knitting flat, and I do like seaming, weirdly. And I like the extra structure it gives, and I completely understand that for linen, maybe working in a round, it's not necessarily trickier, it's just that you might not get quite as structured of a garment as you'd like, and yeah, it's so flowy and drapey that if it was worked without seams, yeah, it might be a bit too much maybe. So I do think that it's a better thing that it's seamed, but in case you really don't like purling, I don't think it's a problem to make it in the round if you wish to. So the Joran knit along is still going on, and there's a couple nice finished objects in the thread already. So I'm going to enter to post pictures of mine soon, whenever I remember to do so. And yeah, I encourage you to enter the knit along if you haven't already. You don't have to finish anything, just chat about what you want to make from Breeze. I encourage you to check it out. And it's all happening in the Making Stories group on Ravelry. I mean, not only is it shaking, I also have the impression that it bent. This is annoying. It's going to be an annoying episode, I'm sorry. Anyway, Joran top is done. I have 2 works in progress. Let me check. Yeah, I have 2 works in progress to check with you. The first one is, well, you probably guess, it is my Green Gables shawl, which is circular lace shawl, and I'm still loving it. Yeah, I really wouldn't have thought that I would be a lace. I don't think I'm a lace knitter, but this, I really wanted to do some lace, some intricate lace, just to sort of cross it on my list, you know. Not that you have to do everything. I just was really attracted to it, to the technique, and I find it really interesting. And you see, I still, I mean, this is fairly simple in the range of making a full-on lace circular shawl. It's still really doable for a beginner, and I'm showing you the wrong side. And I'd still like to do like a proper Shetland lace stole, you know, these are really fine and intricate, or Estonian lace even. Although Estonian lace has a lot of bubbles, and I don't know if bubbles are really my thing. But anyway, I am really happy that I got around to doing this, and surprised that I'm enjoying it so much. Look at it. So this is the Green Gables shawl by Annelies Megaard. I am currently about to start chart G, I think. So I have about 400 stitches on the needle. Soon I'll have 500. No, I think I have 500 now. Yeah. So it's going bigger and bigger, and the rows are getting longer, but I'm still really enjoying it, and I just like to... It's just nice to have a piece of knitting that you need to just knit on it. You know, some music, but yeah, I can't watch podcast or a film or a series with it. And it's just really enjoyable because you get into like the rhythm, and it's really, really pleasant, and I'm really enjoying this, and it just confirms, and it goes with the designing work that I've been doing, and I'll talk about in a bit. It just confirms that sometimes I need, like all of us, a plain stockinette sweater just to go round and round and round and to knit, because when I sit I knit, but I really, really love when I actually have to think. And so I am loving it. And like I said, and you can really see it now, it's lace that actually looks good while you're knitting it, which is something that was a big about lace for me, is that it looks always wonky and meh, and it's bad. But this is actually good, and I think it's a gauge matter, like I said last time. I promise I'm not going to make a second all gauge episode. I just wanted to show you that you can see here in the leaves you have a little bit more of just stockinette section, and you can see that it's not so out of gauge for lace weight. I have checked, and I have 25 stitches, almost 26, 25 and a half stitches to per 10 centimeters, 4 inches. So it's quite tight for lace, you see. But this is what I love, because it actually looks good. It looks brilliant, and it's going to spread out when it's going... Look at this. So this is... I'm trying to show you half, because obviously it's a circle, but I'm trying to show you the motifs. So this is how it's going to be when it's going to be folded. And then you have a section of these sort of meshy bits all around, and then you have some more sort of leafy patterns, and then you have the scalloped border. Yeah, I'm really happy with it, and I just want to spread it. This is on 100 centimeter cable, and I just wish I could spread it. I can't. Yeah. I am using Drops lace, which is 70% alpaca, 30% silk, really nice, fluffy, shiny, smooth. And I changed my needles. I rarely talk about needles on the podcast just because, not because I don't think that materials are important, but because I think that when a lot of knitters talk about needles, they talk about the size, and I don't think that's important. I said it already, giving you the size needle I use is pointless because it doesn't mean that you will need the same. It will just tell you that, well, I get that gauge with that needle size, but that doesn't mean anything to you. That's why I tend not to speak too much about needles. I have a bunch of needles, mostly Nipros and Addies. Budget matter, really. They were functional. I still like them for a lot of things. But there's one thing, is that I like sharp needles. And the Knit Pro are quite sharp. Some of them, the Nipro Novas and the Nipro Zing, are pretty sharp. So that was good until then. The thing is, I had more Addies, and I had a few projects where I had to do a lot of twisted stitches, and I already felt like the Addies were just not possible. I felt like I was knitting with like huge sticks, blunt sticks, and it was awful. And yeah, and my Nipro Novas, I didn't have enough of them, and they weren't perfect either. And then I started doing this, which is quite a fine lace project, and to be honest, I think I could have done it on my Nipro Novas. However, I was slower. I could really feel it, and it was a bit frustrating having to spend 30 seconds trying to get the needles into 3 stitches at once, which is not that much for lace. So when I saw on the patterns that I eventually will have to do knit 5 together and then make 9 into 3 and this sort of things, I knew that I really had to upgrade my needles, finally. And I had a set of fixed Hiya Hiya sharps, small circulars for socks, and I really like them. I like sharp needles. I don't push the needle, so I don't have the problem that a lot of people have with Hiya Hiya sharps. And I just, yeah, struggling to get my needle into the stitches is the worst for me. The joint of the cable, when it's really bad, it's awful. Like, there's no arguing. When it's horribly cheap needle, this is like, I have a set of needles at my boyfriend's, which he kindly got me so that I could knit over there, and I have a lot of sizes, and they're really convenient to have there. But the joint on them and the cable is awful. The cable is super rigid. It's a really weird material, and the joint is awful. Like, I was pushing my stitches constantly, every one of them, just to get it on a needle, and it was really bugging me. But you know, they're there, they're functioning, so that's nice. But you know, I'm knitting so much. It's my job. I need to have proper needles. And so I decided to invest in a set of Hiya Hiya sharps, and I am so happy that I did. You know, it's not that expensive when you think about it. You have 32 needles in it because you have 4 cable sizes and 8 pairs of needles. So yeah, it's it's an investment in one go, but it is really worth it. Whether it's the Hiya Hiya sharps or whatever interchangeable set you get, just make sure you get the right one for you. And I knew that the Hiya Hiya sharps are the right one for me because I like the sharpness. Katie from Inside number 23 told me it's the stabbiness of them, and I really like that term. I agree. It just feels efficient, you know, you're going through those stitches and it just feels so smooth and so nice. And so I am using the Hiya Hiya sharp. So far I really like them. I have been using them on 2 projects, so the lace and another one, and scratch, and I really like them. So I have sizes from 2.75 to 5 millimeter, which is what I'm using most of the time. This has the 3 millimeter. Some sets don't have the 3 millimeter needles. I really needed the 3 millimeter needles. I'm knitting this on 3 millimeter needles. I'm always knitting on 3 millimeter needles, so I needed to have them. So I have 8 pair total. And for cable length, 40 centimeters, 60, 80, and 100. And so it's just so versatile, and I kind of want to get a second one. No, I think I need to get, maybe when I will really identify what I'm using these needles for, which I think is going to be most of my knitting, and what needle size I need, and what cables I really need, maybe I'm gonna get doubles. But so far I'm really happy I got it. It's I'll give more the info on it when I have a lot more practice with it. But so far what I can say is that for this particular project it has made a difference. I'm faster, I'm much faster. Just to give you an example, I have dedicated my mornings to knitting on this, just so that I can advance on it, and because I am a morning person, so my brain is working in the morning. And with the previous needles I was able to make, say, 5-6 rows in a couple of hours, 3 hours, let's say. With this I'm able to make 10. So you see, it's just so much smoother. Maybe the cable joint isn't perfect. I sometimes have to, well, it goes on fairly smoothly, it's just that it's not smooth, perfectly smooth, but I don't know if that's even possible. But there's no problem, it just slides, and here I have the lifeline on that row, and you can still see that it smoothes fairly. You see, just sometimes I have to, there's a little bump. It's okay. It's still the best that I have. The Knit Pro Zing's joint is quite bad on the fixed circular. So even though I really like the needles, the tip, the slick, the joint is a bit annoying. The Knit Pro Novas is good. The joint on the Knit Pro Novas is really good. The joint on the Addies is decent. I think this is still the best. And of course the point. That's so nice. It's not as tabby. Like, I understand why if you keep doing this, it might hurt. Oh, okay, yeah, it does hurt. But yeah, it's not that awful. And it is just to make such a massive difference for me. So yeah, that was a little bit of needle talk. I am happy that I got this color because the color is random when you buy them. I don't know if that's the case everywhere, but where I bought them on the French retailer, there the set was randomly chosen for you, and I like peacock's colors. That's nice. Yeah, so this is where I'm at. I haven't knitted on this since a couple of days because I've been dragged into something else. But I am really loving it, and I really hope that I'm going to keep being as enthusiastic on it till the end, because I really want to make the second part. If you remember, the thing is, this is for a gift that I need to make by the end of the summer, and I have to make 2 gifts, and it's for a mother and her daughter. So I kind of wanted, this is going to be for the daughter, and I kind of wanted to make another circular shawl for the mother. And I wasn't sure if I would be motivated enough to make 2 circle shawl. I think I will. You know, maybe it's my famous last words, and then something horrible is going to happen and I'm never going to want to make less ever again. But so far, it's really nice. The last work in progress I want to share with you is a new cast on, and it's a new design, and it is my first garment design. So yes, I had this in my mind for a while now, and I decided to cast it on because it's going to be light. Maybe sleeveless, I'm not too sure. Well, not sleeveless, maybe short sleeves, I'm not sure yet. It mostly depends on how much yarn I have. So yeah, it's a summer. It's definitely a hot weather thing, so it makes sense to make it now, even though really I should have done it before so that it would be ready for now, but you know. Keep in mind, I am still knitting on an alpaca poncho, okay? So this is, after much trouble, a raglan. So I have just started the top. It's just a simple raglan, so not much to say about the actual design elements that I envisioned for it. But yeah, I first thought, oh, maybe I can make it a yoke shape, and that didn't work out. And I just spent the last 3 days knitting the yoke or the raglan, depending, because once I started trying to do a raglan, I was like, I'm not sure. I did the yoke, I'm like, I'm not sure. I did the second attempt at the yoke, no, not working. And so now I'm doing a raglan. Because my design element is at the bottom, so it's, yeah, the top was, I want something that fits the rest of the design, but both options would have looked really good, and it was just a matter of me being able to make it look like I wanted, and I couldn't get the yoke increases right, so I am doing a raglan. And yeah, I'll get into that. I had a bit of a struggle with the math. Obviously, it's just my first garment design. It's not a struggle. It's just that there are guidelines on how to construct a garment. Obviously, there are rules. I've knit a lot of raglans. I know how it works. It's just that getting the numbers actually yourself to fit your gauge, to fit what you want the design to look like on the body, you have to do the math yourself, and that's just a very different process. Like, I know how raglan works, but I still had to figure out the formulas. Just nothing complicated. It took me a while because, like I said, I was hesitating and I kept ripping back, and I was like, oh. But I am on the right track finally. So you can see my little raglan bits here, and it has a twisted stitches neckline, and the yarn I'm using. God. So I think I've shown you this. This is Maison Corlaine yarns. So this is yarn from a French independent dyer who uses eco-friendly dyes, so without heavy metals. I'm not sure what the English term is, but you know. And they have such a beautiful aesthetic. I really encourage you to check their Instagram. It's gorgeous. They make tonals. They have a perfect sense of colors. They have a vast range. Their blues are beautiful. They have a golden musty color which is called Sidonie, I think it's called Sidonie. It's beautiful. They have beautiful greens. They have dark grays. It's stunning work, really stunning work. And they launched their shop. They started selling last December, and they had a really quick shop update, and I snagged one. skein. And so I snagged one of their Belle Epoque yarns, which is a T20 merino silk blend with a high twist. And I got this color because this is stunning. I love it so much. So it's terracotta, but it's very maybe it's a bit deeper on the screen, although it's just really changing depending on the light. And you see here it's a little bit smoother, and then when I get it closer, it gets closer to burgundies. It's like a rusty terracotta color. You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of the red clay bricks that we have in the area of France where I'm living, around Toulouse and Albi. A lot of architecture is made from these red bricks, clay, and it just makes me think of it, even though it's technically a deeper color, but it has that sort of clay earthy feel to it, and I loved it. And this is the color Sibyl. I don't know how to pronounce Sibyl. I should know because Downton Abbey, Sibyl, which is a name I really like, but you know. And so I had gotten one skein in December, and I had the intention of making maybe, you know, one skein shawl or a pair of socks. And then I thought, I had this sweater idea in mind, and I thought this is too bad because this is perfect. So a month ago, maybe a few weeks ago, I had a look on their shop again, and they still had it available, so I got a second one. And I'm sorry because I caked it like an idiot, so it doesn't look its best, but there it is. So now I have two skeins, and it has 365 meters to 100 gram, so that's enough for a lightweight short sleeve, maybe 3/4 length sleeve garment, I hope. But yeah, and I bought them like 6 months apart, as I told you, and they're like, maybe this one is a bit lighter, although I don't think so. I'm going to alternate them after the Raglan, just to be safe. But it's just a stunning dye job, and that color, I just love it so much. Yeah, I like the merino silk blend. I think it has an interesting sheen to it, and the high twist is really good on this yarn. It has a really good definition. It's pleasant to knit with. You feel that it's strong, so it's a nice yarn to work with. I like it. And so I'm making this new design with it, and I can't wait to show more of it, because right now, you know, it's just a raglan that I've done 10 times. But yeah, you can see that this color is just absolutely beautiful. Am I showing you? Yeah, this is the front and the back, because obviously there's some short row happening here. And yeah, I can't wait to try it on, to make sure that everything's on track, and to start the interesting bits of it. Now, I think I can take that opportunity to talk a little bit about design creativity and originality. If you haven't seen it already, although I doubt it, you can check out Skein Deer's last podcast, Ellie. I'm very happy she brought the subject out, and I realize it's a bit ironic that I'm taking the subject after her. Well, it's precisely about copying and things like that, but you know, you all know Skein Deer, and who am I? But yeah, I just she released that episode yesterday, I think, and I was just fighting with that thing, and had other design thing happening, which I'm going to get in a minute. And so it was just on point. It came at the right time for me. I've already talked in the past about pricing and people wanting things for free, and how some people, even within the knitting community, were complaining that they had to pay for things, while if you think you shouldn't have to pay something, then you don't consider it work. So really, if it's not work, then you can just do it yourself. And I think it's linked to a misconception of the design work. It actually works with any creative endeavor, really. You see a lot of graphic designers and illustrators that have the same problems. I'm gonna give you an example, and it is quite what started my thoughts on this. So faded and flax. I see a lot of people saying that the so faded is a rip-off of the flax sweater. Well, they're both raglans, but the construction is very different. It's fairly obviously distinct. And another example, look at my raglan. You might think it's a simple raglan. I could have just, I could have taken the math off of someone else, like some tend to do. And you might think, where's the individual work on that? But it's all been figured out on its own. And it's actually not the same as any other raglan I have worked on previously. It's in the round from the start. There's a tiny bit of short rows to bring the neck higher. The back raglans are a bit offset to allow for a curve here. There's a certain increase ratio to make room fast here, and then it changes to curve a bit outwards. I did it so that I'm able to adjust the body and sleeve fit. There's nothing revolutionary. All these elements are present in different patterns, and there are, like I said, there are guidelines to make raglans. There are help that you can get online or in designing books. But the thing is, I did start from scratch. I made the numbers myself, even though I'm using principles that are by all means present since way before I was born. But I did the math myself, and I took decisions. When people are saying that a raglan is a rip-off of another raglan, I think that they're saying that because they're not aware of all the design work and the math. And also because the so faded is a paid-for pattern while the flax isn't. And I really think that this money-based thing is adding up on the unhealthy situation on design originality. So it's a complicated issue, and it's a bit double-sided. On one part, you have people looking down on design work and just maybe don't know a lot about the process. And they're saying you shouldn't charge for it because it's a triangle shawl, you didn't invent triangle shawls, so really what are you doing? And on the other side, designers are facing the problem of, well, the fact that you're not reinventing knitting when you're designing, and the inspiration system. Now, there are obvious copies and people who shamelessly say that, oh, you only have to change, Ellie talked about this, 20% of a pattern and then it's yours. What does that come from? Or people saying, oh, you want to design a raglan sweater, just take the math of a pre-existing sweater. But the math is the work. Yeah, you're not inventing the raglan shaping, but you are calculating, you're supposed to calculate. I don't know, that's how I see it. I would be sick taking the math of someone else and just sticking my textures on it. I just don't understand how you could do that and seriously feel good about your design and feeling that you own it. It's not, even if the pattern is free. Even if you're taking the flax sweater and just making it your own and then selling it as an individual pattern, it's not your work. And the fact that Tin Can Knits chose not to charge for it is, I don't think, a free pass to rip their math. The fact that a shape is a standard, so the designer doesn't own it, to me it's not a thing. You still have a lot of complex fit issues and just shaping math to think about, even if you're following a typical guideline, whether it's a certain garment shape or a certain shawl shaping or a sock, And then you have the genuine fact that stitch patterns don't belong to anyone, and that people with similar taste will often get the same ideas. So I'm just throwing in the elements here of the topic, and I think it all creates just a huge misunderstanding. It's just a really unhealthy system where some designers sometimes feel like their ideas have been taken and they're not really sure, and when they're sure, well, you can't do anything about it anyway. And there's also a double paranoia on this. You're afraid to be copied, and you're afraid to have a design that sort of looks like something else. And even though it's not, because you did your own math and it's a whole different process, and it happens that it's a similar texture pattern, but it's in a Stitch dictionary, what do you want to do? You're not inventing knitting. But you're still afraid that some people might believe that you copied, and that the designer itself, the other designer, might feel that way. And that's just awful, because you can't really justify yourself, because a big part of what makes a pattern individual is hidden. And you know, I feel very strongly about that particular part of the problem, and it comes with the fact that I'm a beginner knitwear designer, and that I, in the past, and still have quite a lot of creative issues regarding writing as well. I'm scared to death whenever I have a design idea that someone else is working on the same thing or has worked on the same thing. And I say same thing, it's just, oh crap, there's this one tiny element that kind of maybe looks a little bit like mine. And just this, sometimes it strikes me and it can bum me. And that's ridiculous. That is not a healthy way of being a creative person and of making a knitwear design a proper thing. For example, a few weeks ago I had a shawl idea that I really love and I really want to make it happen. And I have quite the nasty tendency of browsing Ravelry a lot, which is great. But you kind of have that anxiety of stumbling upon something that might invalidate, sort of. It doesn't invalidate, but that I'm just explaining how I feel rather than how I think, which sometimes is in conflict. You know, sometimes you know something and it doesn't prevent you from feeling differently. And so there is a shawl out there that I saw, and just, well, boom, here it is. So my design idea is partially using a lace design, a lace motif. That lace motif has already been used on a shawl by a great knitwear designer, and the shawl is beautiful and it uses that lace motif all over. And the two designs are nothing alike. The shape of the shawl is different, the weight of the yarn is different, and while that really beautiful shawl from the other designer, I can't tell you who it is, because if not, you're going to see, and then I have to process my own design, and you'll see, and it will be a spoiler. So my design has a particular construction and sort of mood and idea behind it that is really obvious, and it makes it very different from the all-over lace design that is already out there. And on mine, the lace is only on a portion of the shawl. I actually don't think that anyone could link the two. If I showed you the two next to each other, you might not see that the lace is the same, but since I was working on it, I was able to recognize it. And it kind of bummed me, it made me really sad, and I thought that it would be really hard to work on that design now. And that's just ridiculous, because they look nothing alike. It was a genuine idea from my part. I know that designers work, but I hadn't seen that particular shawl. And you know, the lace is on a Stitch dictionary, so that happens. I modified it a little bit for my shawl, and she probably modified it. It looks like she modified it as well. And you know, it's not the same thing, but I still felt weird, even though I shouldn't. All of this with the fact that I just spent a week fighting with this Raglan, figure out the math all by myself and do it from scratch. And it is work, it is hard work. So when you're a designer, you're really involved in it and you're really linked to what you're creating. And it creates this sort of extreme thoughts and emotional attachment, and you really don't want to, even unintentionally, participate in a situation when it looks okay to not pay a designer's work because they're all copying each other anyway. It's a really bad thing that some people think that, and you really don't want to make it worse by making another Raglan sweater, even though, well, you're making your own. And like I said, yeah, some really do take others' creative work for real. So it's just a whole mess, and it also affects you. Well, it affects me when you're trying to be honest and to just make your own thing. And as it happens, even though the process is genuine, so you can see your own voice in it, the huge part of the design work is underground, so you're not really sure that you're going to be able to make a point if someone tells you, hey, you made another Raglan, it's not your work. Well, it is. And I think, for me at least, part of the solution is to try to be more open about this, about the creative process itself. I completely understand why most designers actually keep the designs secret until they're ready to be released. I personally feel more comfortable with the middle ground. You know, I would have shown you the damn shawl if I wasn't trying to get it published in a magazine. But I'll show it to you when it will be rejected. I don't want to drown you in my design work because this is a making podcast and not just a marketing tool. But I actually feel like sharing the design process with you and not just showing you the FO and, hey, I published this. I think limiting the talk about my design work to just announcing pattern releases would really alter the podcast content. I feel like I'd lose a lot of interesting things to talk about that I really want to share with you during the making process. I don't want to exclude that part of making, which, you know, it's not just telling you, hey, I'm designing something. It's sharing the process, showing you how it works, the ideas that I have, how I make it work with the yarn. And yeah, it's just as if I was knitting someone else's design, except it happens to be my own and I don't want to exclude it because of that. This is why I choose to share my designs in their creation process, and I hope you understand what I'm saying. This then means that I'd like to address these topics when they come up and talk about this with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, how you feel about the fact that there are things that are old as time in knitting, and that just because you're using a craft that is so vast and so great, it doesn't mean that you can't do it, make it your own in a certain way. And yeah, just about the whole situation and how people feel about creative ownership, so to say. Yeah, I'd really love to hear what you think on this. And yeah, I think it's an interesting topic community-wise, and yeah, it just connects to the fact that I like to talk about the design process with you because I think it's interesting and also important regarding all of these problems that I've just talked about. So yeah, I hope I was able to make something that is a bit consistent there and understandable. My phone was out of battery in the middle, my father was yelling at the dogs, and yeah, the thing is, I'm trying to make sense of it all and share what I think, as well as explaining to you how I feel. And like I said, you don't feel like you think. And I got support from a bunch of designers, because I've talked about this on Instagram last night. And I got support from a few people and other designers, like great designers, that told me that I just shouldn't be so anxious about it. And I completely agree. But you know, like I said, I have writing aspirations. I want to say I had, and that's quite sad, really. When I was a child, I always used to write a lot of stories. I loved doing this. That's the first thing I was doing whenever I got home from school. And this was a huge part of my life. Until I read so much and studied so much and so many great things in the world of fiction, because fiction is something that is the thing that I was loving, that I felt drawn to as a consumer, as a reader, and as a writer. I read so much that now I can't write, because yeah, there's a comparison issue there. It's not necessarily a comparison, because that's horribly pretentious. It's more, I think I've touched about this previously in early episodes, but I think it's more that it's just that whatever you do, you always have that little voice saying, hey, it's already been done, you're just copying that person, or you're just making this, or hey, this is a bit silly, it's too simple, it's nothing worthy of being called your own because it's so basic. And I completely refuse this to happen with knitwear design, because I love it so much, and I am surprised every day of how much I love it and how much I want to do it, even though I'm confronted with issues like this, or I want to say realizing the hard work. I knew it's hard work. It's just that it's one thing to know that it's really tough to design something. It's another thing to actually do it and be faced with the concrete time and effort that it takes. And in spite of all of this, in spite of sometimes the doubtful moments I have when I have a design and I'm like, shoosh, that person is working on something that looks awfully similar. So yeah, despite all of this, I still really want to design knitwear. I love it so much and I don't want it to go away. So yeah, that's why I kind of want to have a healthy approach with you all up front on it. And again, I encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to check out Ellie's latest podcast, Skein Dear. She talks about it at the end. And she just says, just honesty, just be one yourself, so that, you know, when you're designing something, it comes out as true, and that's just how it is. And anyone with some honesty can tell the difference between a real copy and inspiration, or just the fact that yes, it's a Raglan. That doesn't mean that it's not your work. I'm really focusing on Raglan because I have my head like this with the Raglan math, but you understand that it's connected to every sort of standard in the knitwear thing. And just have an open process with it. Maybe it's a solution. So yeah, these were my thoughts on that. I just keep going and adding more to the topic, just to try to share and make you understand how I feel about it. And yeah, I'm going to stop now. Just stop, Audrey. I have to talk about this. I have been sewing again, and I promise I am not going to whine like last time for 30 minutes. Ta-da! So, I had fabric cut for 2 projects since 2 months now, I think. I don't know, and I just couldn't get to it, basically. But I eventually decided, okay, this is just ridiculous, I'm going to do it. Because in the future I have 2 defined projects that I really want to do, 3 actually. Well, 4, but 1 I don't have the fabric, even though I know what fabric I want. Yes, and so I really wanted to get done with the ones that I already cut fabrics for, because they were ready, so that was just ridiculous, and they're simple projects. The first one was this shirt. The second one is another version of the Louisa dress, which I haven't done yet. But at least I've done this one. So, like I said, I had the fabrics cut out for this for months. Sewing is a difficult process for me. So, this is the must-have shirt from M. Comme Marie Patterns, and it's a simple raglan shirt. So yeah, I'm going to lift myself. So here it is. I am fairly happy with it. It's not perfect, I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I have done a few alterations. So this fabric is a cotton Batiste, I think you say Batiste as well in English. It's not a cotton lawn, I don't think so. It's a woven cotton that's like really lightweight, sometimes a bit transparent, really, really soft with that crease like hell, as you can see. But yeah, it's like a really summery woven type of cotton, and it's really fine as well. I had this, I found it really pretty. I don't remember the brand, it's a famous one, I'll link it below. It has this little origami birds on top, and it's a light blue color. And yeah, I just thought it would be nice for a simple t-shirt. And the must-have, like I said, is a simple raglan shirt. And I did a few modification with the size. That is, I cut size 2. The second size, I don't remember how they're called, I'm sorry. I cut the fabric, and so I had a look at the actual patterning 2 months ago. So, but yeah, I remember it was size 2 that I cut. However, I have extended it to the largest size. So I just drew a line from the bottom of the armhole to the hips. I just drew a line that went all the way to the larger size, and I'm glad I did, because if I didn't, look, I only have this amount of fabric extra, and I really wanted it to be A-line and comfortable. And since I knew I was using a woven fabric, I knew it really had to be A-line for it to fit. So yeah, if you're quite hippie like me, not that I'm quite hippie, look at this, just, yeah, maybe, I guess everyone knows that you kind of have to. Look at me, I'm modifying sewing patterns. No, that's just fairly basic. And it fits, it's comfortable and nice, and I really like it. I'm really happy that it actually looks good. 2 defaults is that the darts, they're too high. They're here. I think darts should start at your nipple, right? Is that right? Can you confirm? I don't know. I feel like they're here, you see? That's too high for me. I don't know. I think it looks weird. And I think I have read somewhere that darts should start about at the level of your nipples. So for me, they're 5 centimeters too high. That's not my fault, that's the pattern's fault, that's my boobs are too low, I don't know, but yeah. yeah, so that's okay. It was my first time making darts. I'm not too sure what I've done. The point is not perfect. You can't see anything. Hey, can you see it? Nah. The point is not perfect, but I mean, it's a dart. Yeah, so I try to remember to see if I can lower my darts by about 5 centimeters to make sure that they are on the right position. Another mistake is, what side is it? Is it here? Yes, look at this. I always do this. Well, always. I did it last time as well. Basically, at the very end of the seaming, when I was doing the caps. So I hemmed the sleeves, the bottom, and the neckline. I sort of considered putting a bias tape. Is that how it's called? I just thought, I know it's something quite basic and I really should learn how to do it, but I'm just too lazy to do this. And I just thought this would do this look good. I have a white bias. I could have made my own from this, but this was just too many steps and it took 2 months already to make this. So I was not going to add another step for me. You know, it's just functional. I don't want it to be perfect. But anyway. And so when I was making the neck thing, of course, at the very end, I caught a bit of the fabric and it makes this bump here. You can't see it. I don't care. I have store-bought shirts and garments that have way worse defects than this. So, you know. It looks like a shirt. My hair is on top of it. You can't see. The neckline isn't ideal. Obviously, a bias tape was a better idea. Maybe my thing is too fine as well. I don't know. I'm really happy though that it's like a nice... All of them. All of my hems. I just folded them inside twice when helping myself with an iron and then sew over it. And they're fairly straight, which is an accomplishment for me to sew straight. So yeah, it's nice. I like it. I think it's a nice basic t-shirt thing, and I would definitely do it again, maybe with some knit fabrics as well. I think it can be a good idea. Viscose could be nice. Maybe linen as well, I think. Although maybe if I'm doing it with a fabric that's a little bit thicker, maybe I will want to recheck the sleeve, the armholes and the sleeves, because they're twisting a bit. It's okay. And again, I have store-bought shirts that feel the same, so that's more than okay. So yeah, I am fairly happy with it. I don't know when I'll be sewing that second Louisa dress that I want to do. I want to make it in burgundy woven cotton. That is maybe... It's quite fine. It's not quilting cotton, but maybe it's still going to look awkward as a garment. I don't care. I just want to make it. I'm just going to show you the things because I happen to be in the right room, so that's just ridiculous. I'm gonna get the fabrics here. That way I can also ask for your advice. Thank you so much. People keep helping me. I think it was episode 44 when I had my sewing drama. So I'm just going to concretely show you the plans, and I don't care if that episode is 2 hours long. So like I said, I want to make another Louisa dress. So that's the Louisa dress, the bowless. That's the fabric that I will use for this version. As you can see, it's like it's a woven cotton. It looks like a poplin, but it's finer than a poplin. It's just a woven cotton. It was called cotton. Fabric shops, please call your things better things than cotton. But yeah, you see, it's like this. It's quite fluid. It's still a bit stiff. It's not too thick. So I don't know how that's going to feel it's similar to this. It's less fine, so better for a dress, I think. And it's burgundy. It's quite drapey, so I think it should do okay. I don't know. The fabric is cut anyway. That was cheap. So I'm just going to make it and see what happens. It will just make me more comfortable with my machine so I can do a better thing. After I've done that, and if it really doesn't work, I think I know this will work in like a tencel fabric, you know, chambray, jeans, the bluish thing, or linen. So either I will get that and make a Louisa dress that will hopefully be wearable. In case that one isn't, you never know. Next up is, so this is another M. Marie patterns, and this is a dress, and as you can see, it's a very simple dress with satin sleeves. I think it's okay. I think I can make this. This is the thing that I also extended when I cut the pattern, because from the measurements, again, I'm size S at the top and I'm size double L at the bottom, so that's just ridiculous. So I extended it and I'm going to have a nail line. Hopefully that will be okay. And so I am first going to make this using this fabric. So this is the fabric I have for a while, and this is like a test fabric. It's still quite fun. No, I don't know. This will be more of a winter type dress. It's quite thick. It's a knit fabric. It's like I think it's a double knit. It's not really stretchy. Yeah, it's really drapey, and this has been washed already, and I should, I'm gonna have to refold it, and I should cut it someday and make that dress. The reason I am doing that dress in that ridiculous test fabric is because I actually want that dress in this, which is, I love tartan, I really do, and this is a viscose tartan, and so they're fairly similar in the sense that they're both drapey and they don't have much stretch. So this is really beautiful and it's really precious, and I really want a dress like this in that, but I don't want to mess it up. So that's why I'm making the test version with the crazy watercolory thing, just so that I can check the fit and I can be a bit more confident when I will be using this beautiful tartan. I'm sorry, Scotland, I'm not quite on point with the vocabulary, but you know, I really love it. So that is the next plan. Then I have another Wear Lemonade pattern, which is the Frida dress, which is, you know, I told you I liked Wear Lemonade style. You know, it's like really loose A-line, sometimes fitted to the waist like this is with the, it's how's it called? It's not pleated, it's the other one. You know, when you frills, I don't know, I don't remember. At the waist, and you can have a belt, and I want to make it in this, which is a chambray, a black and white striped chambray. And the way I want to do it is that I want to have the top of the dress with the stripes going that way, and the pocket, because I am going to make the pocket, I think, unless I give up, the pocket and the skirt with the stripes going that way, you know. And I really like this. This is really fluid. I know this is totally going to work with the Frida dress, because I've seen people make the Frida dress out of chambray, so that should be fine. And I won't be struggling too much with my fabrics with what pattern problem. Now I have one last thing I would like to show you and actually ask your advice. I have this fabric, which is a knit fabric, very drapey. It's sort of fine, but not so much fine. It's elastic. It's fairly elastic. It's not drastically elastic, you know. I think it will have a really nice drapey drape. A drapey drape. I have plans to make a cocoa dress with it, you know, the cocoa dress from Tilly and the Buttons. I'm afraid it's too fine. What do you think? Because, yeah, the cocoa dress, Tilly says to use a medium weight. I don't know what's medium and what's fine. Something that has not too much stretch. You know, that's stretch, but it's not drastic either. And like I said, I have hips, so maybe that wouldn't be so much a bad thing. But is it too fine? Is it too fine? Is it too drapey? Will that look good in a cocoa dress? That's my question. Or does the cocoa dress really need more structure? So do I actually need to go for something a bit more like this, that's thicker? What do you think? Because I really like that fabric. I think it's really pretty, and I think the cocoa dress will look nice. I'm not 100% sure. And if you think the cocoa dress will not look good, what would you do with 3 meters of this knit fabric that's really drapey and fine? That's viscose. I would gladly take any advice that you might have on the subject. So that's it. I talked a lot more about sewing than I thought I would. Yeah. I'm gonna go now and edit this into a hopefully consistent video. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me this week. I wish you a happy day, night and week, and I will see you next time. Bye!